We should never take impeachment off the table. We should never take where we see law breaking. We should never take accountability off the table.
This nonsense from like AOC that he should be impeached is just absurd. Absurd. There's no... Okay, get back to me when you've read the Constitution or get a law degree, because you sound like an absolute...
Megyn Kelly unleashed a blast so fierce it flipped the entire stage on its head. This wasn't a witty jab. It was a wrecking ball crashing down with the shock of a Hollywood cliffhanger. AOC, usually untouchable under the spotlight, suddenly looked like she had stepped straight into an inferno, armed with nothing but a paper fan. And the twist? No one saw it coming. After this fiery clash, AOC's image will never look the same again. Kelly didn't just raise the heat. She set the room ablaze. What followed wasn't a polite debate. It was a heavyweight clash where one fighter showed up unarmed. Kelly didn't stop at poking holes in AOC's carefully polished persona. She tore right through it with the reckless precision of a toddler ripping wallpaper to shreds.
There is absolutely no ground to impeach the president. He 100% was within his constitutional authority and his congressionally authorized authority to do what he did on Saturday. Okay, but as for whether it's a good idea, that's a debate we should be having. And look, you know, if we could get congressional approval of the specific action, fine, I'm okay with that too. If you want to bring it to Congress, go ahead and see how that goes. I don't think it's necessary, but...
In a flash, AOC wasn't the fiery Instagram live star, sipping wine and hyping her followers. She was trapped under Megyn Kelly's blazing spotlight, frozen like someone who just realized the Wi-Fi password got changed without warning. The transformation was brutal. Her confidence evaporated, leaving behind a stunned silence that spoke louder than any speech could. Here's the unvarnished truth about AOC. Her entire brand runs on pure vibes. Her playbook isn't grounded in substance or detail, but Megyn doesn't traffic in vibes. She strikes with surgical precision, the kind that can leave even the boldest politician second-guessing whether their grand thesis was just an elaborate prank. And that's exactly what went down. AOC strolled in with her usual formula: sweeping statements, fiery cadence, maybe even a flashy metaphor about climate change and credit card debt. But Kelly wasn't buying any of it. She stripped the performance apart, layer by layer, until AOC no longer resembled a congresswoman in control, but a student fumbling through a book report on a novel she never even cracked open.
Check in on AOC and see what she has to say.
Reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now.
Oh man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent, and she leans into her fake Latina accent. And she's the adult in the room.
Before we dive any deeper, smash that like button and make sure to subscribe. The genius of Megyn's approach was simple but devastating. She didn't waste energy on cheap insults. She came loaded with receipts, razor-sharp breakdowns, and the kind of observations that shredded AOC's talking points faster than a sequined gown tossed into the wrong spin cycle. And the audience? They weren't just entertained, they were floored. Debating AOC is one thing, but watching Megyn calmly dismantle her entire brand piece by piece was like tearing down IKEA furniture without the manual. Frustrating, brutal, and oddly satisfying all at once. Here's the stunner. AOC, usually untouchable, the late-night darling, the Twitter thread heroine, the crusader against capitalism strutting in $300 sneakers, suddenly looked shockingly ordinary. AOC's image has always been curated with surgical precision, polished so hard it makes an Apple keynote look like a middle school talent show. But Megyn didn't just expose the flaws, she magnified them in cinematic detail, blasting them in 4K slow motion with surround sound for the world to witness. In that instant, AOC's glossy, "I'm the future" persona collapsed, not like destiny fulfilled, but like a failed Broadway audition that accidentally stumbled onto C-SPAN. And here's the kicker, it wasn't just about policy anymore.
It's the true radical left, who's gone beyond all the identity issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, the person I'm going to show you is 100% wrapped in all of them, but like genuinely believes the Hitler fascist stuff, like is distraught because they really think Hitler just got reelected. Most of them were just pretending, but then there are the ones who genuinely believe it, like AOC.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies.
Megyn zeroed in on the performance itself, the piece nobody else dared to touch. While others wasted breath-tangling with AOC's talking points, Megyn ripped back the curtain on the stagecraft, the hand-waving, the perfectly timed pauses, the carefully rehearsed bursts of emotion. It was like unmasking the Wizard of Oz, only to find not a mastermind, but a guy with a megaphone and a fog machine. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The fallout was priceless. Half the audience sat frozen in stunned silence, jaws practically hitting the floor, while the other half erupted in laughter. Somewhere in Brooklyn, a barista was probably still insisting AOC was brilliant, even as she was being steamrolled live in real time. But that loyalty didn't matter anymore. The damage had already been carved in stone. Megyn revealed that the emperor wasn't just without clothes. She looked like she was trying to return them for store credit. And the timing? Spot on. AOC had been coasting high on the glow of influencer politics, where a sassy online clapback somehow gets paraded around as serious legislative action. Megyn's strike wasn't just ruthless, it was perfectly timed to puncture the illusion right when the spotlight burned brightest.
AOC has been out there on this, I don't know if it's campaign trail, I don't know what we're calling it, but this like fight the oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders, from which, venue to venue, she travels first class, sipping her champagne, in the first class cabin as the losers and plebs walk by to coach. They're the ones she's really fighting for. And she's decided to ramp up her anti-Trump rhetoric in a way she's done before, but that could be deeply problematic for her if Trump actually decides to pay some attention to her.
When Megyn called her out, the truth landed hard. Clapping back only works if you actually have something worth clapping with. Without substance, it's nothing but empty noise. All motion, zero impact. Call it what it is, political jazz hands. And here's the sting. AOC likely thought she could spin the moment into her usual routine, play the victim, rally her base, toss in a few hashtags, and let the social media machine roar. But this wasn't the same old script. Politicians get hit over policies all the time. What they almost never face is exposure of the performance itself. That's where Megyn struck gold. And in politics, nothing sinks faster than looking like the desperate try-hard in the room. By the time the dust settled, Megyn had done what no one else dared. She didn't just win an argument, she rewired the way people saw AOC. Once you realize the so-called voice of the people is basically auditioning for Broadway every time she grabs a mic, you can't unsee it. It's like discovering your favorite action hero was leaning on a stunt double all along.
Report today that AOC may be getting ready to run for president, that her team is looking, and I know you've said she could potentially do it, but her team is looking at maybe Senate. Chuck Schumer is, I think, going to be 78 when he runs for re-election. That's really old, and the Democrats seem to get that now. Or she might just go for president. And at the same time, this happened today. The Republicans in the House introduced a resolution to honor Charlie Kirk. It condemns the murder and it praised.
And here's the real shocker. This wasn't even Megyn at full power. This was Megyn on a casual Tuesday, coffee in hand, effortlessly dismantling a politician like it was nothing more than her morning stretch. Now just imagine the storm if she ever aimed her full arsenal at AOC. That wouldn't just be exposure. It would be political demolition, served with a smile. Because once Megyn exposes you like this, the internet never lets go. Memes flood every feed. Late-night hosts scramble to turn it into punchlines, and somewhere a frantic team of interns is sweating bullets, trying to scrub clips off trending pages. Spoiler alert, it never works. At this point, AOC's smartest play might be to embrace the theater outright. Why not go full Broadway and belt out musical numbers on the house floor, jazz hands included? At least then people might laugh with her instead of at her. But after Megyn's takedown, the illusion collapsed completely. The wildest part? How fast everything flipped once Megyn shoved AOC under the microscope. Just minutes before, she looked untouchable, the digital superhero worshipped by her fans, the icon who could do no wrong. But under Megyn's spotlight, that myth disintegrated in real time.
Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Clearly saying that Donald Trump is a racist. Rapist. She also thinks he's a racist. He's all the ists. But here, she's in deep trouble because he was not found liable for rape. And George Stephanopoulos just had to pay ABC some $15 million to President Trump to settle a defamation lawsuit.
She could bungle a policy explanation, twist metaphors until they sounded like throwaways from a fortune cookie factory, or toss out some clumsy analogy about billionaires swallowing planets, and the crowd would still roar like she'd just taken a bow in Hamilton. But Megyn wasn't there to applaud. She punctured the balloon, and all the air hissed out in one long, humiliating squeak. That's the merciless truth about performance politics. It only works as long as the audience keeps believing in the illusion. And Megyn, with surgical precision, yanked the wires straight into view. Picture AOC stepping into one of her trademark speeches. The wide eyes, the calculated pauses, the hands slicing through the air like she's conducting an invisible orchestra. Normally, the crowd eats it up, but this time, with Megyn exposing the formula, every flourish looked rehearsed, mechanical, almost robotic. It was like watching a magician run the same card trick after you already know where the ace is hidden. Impressive the first time, painfully predictable by the 10th. And you could almost see AOC realizing it herself in real time. Her entire brand depends on control. Controlling the vibe, the story, and exactly how each gesture lands with the audience. But under Megyn's spotlight, that control slipped right through her fingers.
There's AOC, who said the following.
And beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans, far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution.
Then she voted no. She refused to join in the resolution. Consequences to her politically for doing that?
I would love to have her run for president of the Democratic side. It's a contrast, right? What you see is what you get. If that's what you think can lead this country, is that where your values are? Is that what you think will continue to promote American freedom and liberty?
Once Megyn tore away that control, the whole performance started to wobble. In an instant, AOC no longer looked like the fearless revolutionary of a new generation. She looked like a tired drama student, blanking on lines halfway through a play. Megyn calmly dismantled her playbook, one exaggerated gesture at a time, and with every move, the cracks spread wider. AOC thrives on villains. She needs her opposition to look like cartoon bad guys because that's what powers her brand. But what happens when the opposition doesn't play the part? What happens when Megyn simply stood there, smiling, casually pointing out that the emperor was just flailing with jazz hands in an empty room? There was no fiery battle, just silence, and the sharp hiss of credibility leaking away. Her die-hard loyalists scrambled to the rescue, Twitter flooded with threads longer than college dissertations, each one twisting itself into knots, trying to insist she wasn't really exposed, that Megyn was unfair, and that none of this even mattered. But here's the delicious irony. The harder they tried to explain it away, the clearer the cracks became. Because if it takes a 42-part essay to convince people someone wasn't humiliated, then yes, they were humiliated.
And the reason this is relevant is because a congresswoman who you may know as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been telling us for years that she is from the Bronx. And recently she had a fight with President Trump over tweet, text, truth, whatever. And she played tough and said, "Oh, don't you mess with me. I'm a Bronx girl. And we eat Queens boys for breakfast," because that's where Trump was raised, in the Queens. And respectfully, AOC. Well, that's real cute, except she only lived in the Bronx until she was age 5.
Meanwhile, Megyn simply leaned back and let the chaos spiral, probably sipping her coffee like a queen surveying the ruins of her battlefield. That's the brilliance of exposure done right. You don't need a second strike when the first blow keeps echoing on its own. Clips replay, memes explode across timelines, and every new conversation drags AOC's performance back under the spotlight. And with each replay, it looks worse than before. It was almost poetic, like a gymnast nailing a flawless triple flip, only to faceplant while waving to the crowd. Nobody remembers the flips after that. They remember the crash, and this crash reverberated everywhere. Even the media ripple effect was hilarious. Outlets that normally bend over backwards to protect AOC suddenly started whispering, well, maybe she does lean a little too hard on theatrics. Oh, now they notice. After years of overacting, staged moments, and Instagram sermons, it took Megyn drawing a neon arrow before they dared admit it.
Fourth place, not necessarily fourth place. This is just, I'm going to start with as the fourth possibility, but I've got 4 total, and you'll decide what order they go in. I'm going to kick it off with AOC. Okay. Her real name is Sandy Ocasio. This is what she went by her entire life, Sandy Ocasio. And only when she decided to run for office did she decide to suddenly become Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and lean into her Puerto Rican history, where her mother was born in Puerto Rico, but her father was born in New York City. And she decided to tell us sob stories about how she's from a poor family and she was living, paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, she was raised in a Tony part of Westchester called Yorktown Heights.
And the memes? Oh, that's where the wrecking ball really swings. The internet doesn't trade in nuance. It thrives on punchlines. And Megyn served up a feast. Clips of AOC's frantic hand waves now loop under circus music. Her dramatic pauses morph into cringe-filled silences on repeat. Screenshots freeze her mid-expression with captions like, "Oscar-worthy performance, 0 policy details." Once the internet grabs hold like that, credibility isn't just bruised. It's roasted, shrink-wrapped, and stored in the archives forever. From that moment, every grand gesture looked fake. Every pause sounded scripted. Every plea felt less like politics and more like a desperate audition monologue. That's when the facade split wide open, supporters scrambling with tape, media outlets quietly conceding what they always knew, and Megyn standing tall as the one who proved the emperor wasn't just unclothed. He was throwing jazz hands in the spotlight. And here's the final twist. This wasn't even a battle. No clash of titans. No thunderous applause. No dramatic gasps. Just the slow, sinking realization that nobody buys the act anymore. The wires are exposed, the props are obvious, and the person on stage looks like they're trying far too hard. That's the kind of demolition nobody else ever pulled off. Until Megyn did.